Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Our guest this morning is Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Cowrie Investments Limited. A fine morning to you, Mr. Chukwu.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Your voice is quite faint. Can they increase the volume?
Oh, we're on it already. We're working on it. Thank you very much. So, okay, because it would be a disaster if you can't hear me. So, well, Mr. Johnson Chukwu is an economist, as we well know, but I just thought I'd say that. And our subject matter is going to be taking a look at the declining, inflation, stable naira, and all of these raising the hope of rate cuts. That's exactly the way one newspaper sort of captioned it, that declining inflation, stable naira, raised hope of rate cuts. I could actually begin from just looking at that caption. You know, I wanted to take it from another angle. We hear all these things, and that's because there are specialist measurings and monitorings, and so it might indeed be a fact that there's a declining inflation rate, and might also be a fact that there's a stable naira. We're talking in the region of 1,500 naira to the dollar. But this is not really known, I would wager, to the ordinary Nigerian, because what economists are looking at as, positive news, this is positive news. Well, to the man in the streets, to the market woman, to the ordinary person, it hardly affects their cost of living. So when we are beating our chest that declining inflation, stable naira, raised hope of rate cuts, I don't know. I'd like to just be guided by your understanding and knowledge, because the monetary policy rate is still at 27.5%. Businessmen are groaning that how can we really break even with this? So how would you look at that whole statement and explain it to us?
Okay, let's look at it from the perspective you have presented it. Well, inflation is coming down, exchange rate is stable, and then but we the average man on the street, and that the fact that inflation is coming down, exchange rate is stable, gives hope that the Monetary Policy Committee will reduce monetary policy rates.
Yes.
What that means is that the economist is saying, look, the factor that we are making the Monetary Policy Committee to increase lending rates. Bear in mind that what they call the MPR, the monetary policy rate, is a benchmark rate. And that benchmark rate, it becomes the anchor rate upon which other interest rates take a cue from. Their cue from. So if we are saying that the monetary policy rate is 27.5%, and then the estimated corridor of plus 500 minus 400, let me not bring too much technicalities.
Yes.
Let's just look at that the monetary policy rate is at 27.5%. The banks that want to lend will say, look, instead of lending to Uncle Yori or to Mr. Johnson, we can as well give this money to central bank and then enjoy a high interest rate. If that monetary policy rate comes down, then the bank will say, look, I can give this money at Mr. Johnson at 20%. If monetary policy rate is 18%, so I will still make profit, more money than I would have made if I left the money with the central bank. So it acts as an anchor rate. And because the bank is saying they will charge loan rate at 20%, it also means that instead of paying deposit rate at 20%, they will say, okay, I will only pay you 15% for your deposit or 12%. So eventually interest rate will come down. People who are in business will be able to borrow more money and go into production activities. And people who want to pay school fees or media urgent needs can easily borrow at a lower rate. So that's why what people are saying that, that's why the anchor rate or MPR rate is very important. But what people are saying is that because the factors that the Monetary Policy Committee, that is the committee that decides what the MPR rate should be,
yes,
the factors they always consider are inflation rate. If inflation is high, they will not want to reduce the amount of lending in the economy so that money circulation, the volume of money that is operating in the economy will slow down. So they will increase the monetary policy rate so that people will no longer borrow money easily and demand for goods and services, which is a factor that drives inflation. Another factor they consider is that if there is so much pressure on FX, which means people can borrow money and buy dollar. So they will say, let's increase rates so that people will find it more expensive to borrow money to buy dollar. And once they can't borrow money to buy dollar, the pressure on dollar will come down. So what people are saying in putting the whole thing together is that pressure on dollar has come down, Naira has stabilized reasonably. So the reason why you keep this rate high at 27.5% is no longer there. Mm-hmm. The other reason you gave is that inflation rate had gone to 33.212% average last year. Inflation rate was increasing on a daily basis. And people are saying, okay, now inflation rate is coming down from 24.5% in January to 20.12% in August. So you no longer have the reason to say, look, let us tighten because inflation is going up. Inflation is coming down now. Secondly, you won't say Naira was under pressure. Naira is now the one that is beating dollar. So in that case, you need to reduce the monetary policy rate. And that's the logic of what you just read out. Then for the man on the average man on the street, they're saying, look, what is all these things? How does it affect me? If interest rates come down, it then means that the manufacturing companies, the businesses can borrow money at a lower rate. When they borrow money at a lower rate, they can now produce more goods and services. If we want to produce more goods and services, they will need to employ more people. So you may be, or your sibling, or your cousin, or your nephew may be among those they will now employ. If the person is living with you and they employ the person gets a new job, the income will add to your household income. When you see, previously, when you used to give the person money for transport, the person will now even bring money and say, like, let's add to their money we're using to make soup. So that's the logic of it.
Well, thank you very, very much, because this is quite helpful to put in perspective what all of these things mean. I suppose I therefore understand from what you've briefly explained why I think a colleague of yours, another economist, I'm talking here about the financial derivatives guy, has said that...
Okay, please, let him work on your audio.
Okay. We will work on that audio. I had just given my word that we were working on it. And here is Mr. Chukwu saying that he has the difficulty in hearing us. Okay. So as we are speaking, and as I said earlier, we are working on it. So sorry about that. But I was going to, Mr. Rewane had said that, look, all of these, we expect that even though we hope that there will be a coming down of the of rates, he said, but you people, all you experts, are still expecting that it's going to be very, very strict and very tight. Say those that are managing the economy, they're not known to just throwing out these figures like that. They are even working in, percentages of a single percentage point. So it appears that the central bank is not going to be in an undue haste to, to lower rates. Is that right?
Yes, the factors I mentioned, those two major factors that drive their decision, which is pressure on exchange rates and inflation rates. We will not say we are yet in a state of uru, that there's no risk that Naira will come under pressure again. Of course, we're talking of a reserve of 42 billion today. So, but there is still a risk that if you lower it drastically, part of the support Naira is getting is coming from what we call foreign portfolio investors. That is foreigners who are buying treasury bills, who are buying Nigerian shares, who are buying federal government, who are buying commercial paper instruments issued by Nigerian companies. So if you bring rates down drastically, the return they expect to make by investing in Naira instruments will come down, and they may decide to sell and go back. If they sell and go back, you have pressure on your exchange rate. So the central bank is not likely to bring down interest rates so drastic as to make the foreign portfolio investors who are interested in buying Nigerian instruments want to run back to their countries. That's one factor. The other factor is issue of food inflation or inflation overall. You see, the inflation pressure is also tied to some extent on exchange rate. Part of the reasons why we've seen inflation reducing is because Naira has been stabilizing. So if you take any measure that makes foreigners to leave, foreign portfolio investors to live in a hurry, and then that means Naira will come under pressure, Naira will depreciate. If Naira start from exchanging at 1,500 and begin to exchange at 1,600, 1,700, the importers will increase their prices. So inflation will go up again. So because are not yet settled, the Monetary Policy Committee will be very moderate, should be very moderate. Let me use the word should.
Okay.
They should be circumspect in reducing rates.
Okay. What part does export play in this? Because we've long been hearing that we do need to increase our exports. Well, it seems like, even though I accept when you said it's not quite yet uhuru for us, but it is said that we are now actually exporting more than we are importing. First of all, is that a statement you want to get behind, that that is indeed the case?
Okay, let me start from what slow does export come here. Your export is actually your lead operating business. That is the one that brings you money that stays with you. That is your own money, that nobody will take it away because you are saying, look, I'm bringing that interest rate, or because they hear that rain fell so much and there's flooding. Because foreign portfolio investors are always very unstable in their investment, because once they hear any little thing that makes them uncomfortable, they will leave urgently. But your exports, your net export, which is the surplus of your export over your import, is what is with you. That is your own money.
Yes.
That is similar to, look, Okuyori, I earn 200,000, I spend 100,000. So the one that is my own money is 100,000. That's the one that live in my savings. So it's not money I borrow, that if I borrow somebody's money, he will say, okay, today it's raining too much, I want your money. So that's why export is very critical in having a stable macroeconomic environment, having a stable exchange rate environment. And like you rightly pointed out, we've seen in the last 2 quarters, not just last 2 quarters, we've seen for a couple of quarters, but last quarters were quite pronounced. In the first quarter of this year, our total export was 20 trillion naira. Our total import was 15 trillion naira. So we had a surplus of what they call positive balance of trade, but let's call it surplus of 5 trillion naira, about 5.2 trillion naira in the first quarter of this year. Second quarter of this year, our import remained at 15.2 trillion naira. Our export now grew to 22 trillion naira. So our net balance of trade, our positive balance of trade, or our surplus became about 7.4 trillion naira. So over the past 12 months, 6 months, we've made a surplus of about 12 trillion naira. And that is part of what you have in the reserve. That is what matters most. So countries that have very strong economy are countries whose exports are more than their imports. And which is one of the reasons why US government is under Trump is fighting.
Okay, we're just waiting for it to unfreeze. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Kari Investment Limited, is explaining the dynamics of the declining inflation, stable naira, and the hopes that we have for interest rates, bringing down interest rates. And he's just finished explaining, quite copiously, in fact, why this. Why what is going on here is that the central bank is likely to be, quite shy of, dropping the rates anyhow. Kesandu, good morning to you, sir. Good morning, Kesandu.
Good morning, Uncle. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I feel very comfortable with his analysis, but I also want, I have a confession.
Okay.
Please, sir. I want to ask, because you made an analysis concerning probably foreigners that are making investments in Nigeria. You understand that if you bring down the value naira so much, it could affect them, they could leave this around. Now, I want to ask, in as much as I understand that, yes, we have to do businesses with others, you understand, to have this stability. But who should be the primary concern here? I think it should be Nigeria. And that is why probably the question is asked. Sir, if Nigeria is brought down, and it's allowed most of us in this country, small-scale, medium enterprises, to flourish, and we're comfortable, and probably goods and services are brought down, and it's even helping us to actually generate so much that we can take outside. Now, if you are most comfortable in Nigeria that we can export, and guess what we have, like you already said, we have some level of stability because we have money left as we're giving up. Because I feel the most important thing is to make Nigeria very comfortable, to get Nigeria out of poverty, to make food sufficiency very comfortable for us. It will start considering. So if this thing can come down and to make us convenient, like I am from YouTube, in the local government in Imo State. Sir, we have capacity to produce just all these things, but we don't have the finance to actually get for this to happen. Because I know with the capacity of my local government, we can feed the entire Imo State and export. So what at this point, who should be the primary concern for all of us? Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. Kesandu. And in the meanwhile, Mr. Johnson Chukwu came back on. In fact, you heard the real heart of his matter, his point of view being that, look, the way you explained it, whereas he can appreciate it, it does seem like, unlike the MAGA in America, why are we not doing something equivalent and concern ourselves exclusively with the welfare, as it were, of Nigerians? Why do we seem to be also bothering about the, shall I say, wholesomeness of our trading partners?
Excuse me. Well, I think when we talk about our trading partners, you have to look at it in context. Well, every country's economic policy is anchored around its own economic well-being and the well-being of its citizens. When we talk about trading partners, who are the major trading partners? You're talking of, excuse me, you're talking of China, you're talking of US, you're talking of India, in terms of your import partners. In terms of your export partners, you're talking of the countries like India, Netherlands, Spain, and all those countries. So, but for us, what we look at is this. If a country like your export partners are not doing well, that means they won't be able to buy your goods. So you're interested in them doing well so that they continue to buy goods from you. And that's why when we talk about our major export commodity is crude oil. So, so if the US, for instance, are major consumers of crude oil in the world are China today, US, India, and the Western economies. If the economies slow down, the demand for crude will go down. If demand for crude goes down, your export earnings will go down. If your export earnings goes down and you still import the same quality of goods and services, your naira will come under pressure because you're no longer earning enough dollar to be able to finance use the dollar to pay for what you are importing. So you may now need to go and borrow. So it's in your interest that whoever your trading partner is doing well so that they can continue to trade with you. Similarly, for your import, our largest import partner is China, followed by the US. China accounts for about 32.5% of our total imports. So if China shuts down, like happened after the COVID, when other countries reopened and China shut down, so you realize that most Nigerian importers couldn't import the raw material, the equipment, the machinery they were importing. Some of them were at the stages of fixing their factory, and they couldn't bring in Chinese to come and do those things that had started the process. So you see a shutdown in that economic activity. And if you can't import most of the things you import, you find now that those things will become expensive. The few ones are available, people want to buy them at any cost.
Okay.
So the economic health of your core major trading partner is also directly related to your own economic health. And that's why people are interested in how well their trading partners do. But that does not take away the fact that your economic policies should be inward-looking. Inward-looking is this, how do I produce more goods so that I'm not only dependent on export of crude, I can also export tomato, I can export cassava, I can export tubers of yam, I can convert cassava into starch, I can convert it into several things. My palm oil, I can also convert it into vegetable oil. So I can export it. So I don't need to rely on the US, India, and China buying crude oil. I can also sell these things to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Brazil. So in that case, I'm no longer subject to a particular country. Then for your import, you say, why must I import everything from China? Why don't I attract those Chinese companies to come and produce them here? Why don't I learn the competencies or encourage my Nigerian business people to access loans from the back of industries to go and set up those factories and produce things that I have to import from China, so that if China shuts down, my economy does not shut down. So that's where the speaker's comments come in, that we must have an economic policy inward looking, focusing on how do we structure our economy that we're not dependent on any particular country.
Okay. Reverend Dominic in Alimosho, thank you very much, sir, for holding on all this while. It still was a bit too late. Reverend Dominic, who had called in from Alimosho, but I didn't want to break Mr. Chukwu's thoughts, but because I just wanted him to land with that explanation, which was occasioned by Kesandu's call. Talking about what you were just talking about, we have to look inward. There are those who are crediting President Tinubu's attitude of look inwards, by Nigeria. Whatever it is that we need, if there's a Nigerian alternative, that is what we should be concentrating on. Has that policy yielded, sufficient results to your satisfaction?
Okay, I think that it's too early to call. The government just announced that contracts below 20 billion and below will be given to Nigerian companies. In terms of import substitution in manufacturing or in buying what is made in Nigeria, we are yet to see that manifest in a way that can be measured. Maybe it's still at a rudimentary state that you can measure it. Why we are seeing a slowdown in demand in import is because you and I can't afford the same quantity of goods and services we used to afford a year, 2 years ago, or 20 months ago, because of inflation, which has eroded the cost of our income. Bear in mind that if you look at the inflation rate in August of 20.12%, and you add it to the base upon which they started computing that increment of 20.12, which was 33.18%, you, on average, from January 2024 to August, average prices have increased by 53.3%. Uncle Yori, it then means that for me and you to buy the same quantity of goods and services we bought in December 2023, our income must have increased by a minimum of 53.3%. And I do not think that most of us who are on salary have had that level of increment in our salaries and wages over the past 20 months. So that's why you are seeing a slowdown in import, because people can no longer afford to pay for the same quantity of goods and services that they used to pay. And which is why sometimes Nigerians ask, we are not feeling the impact. We will begin to feel the impact of a reduction in or this inflation when our income is higher, increases at a rate higher than the rate at which price of goods and services are increasing. It's very simple. If I'm earning 100,000 today and price of goods and services in the market increase to 120,000 naira. If my salary has only increased by 10,000 naira, I can't buy the same quantity of goods and services I used to buy.
You can't.
So my salary needs to increase by, at the minimum, 120 to 120,000, so that I can buy I can be in the same position I was before the inflation rate increased.
I hear you. Okay, thank you. Mr. George, good morning to you, sir. Go ahead now, please.
Okay. Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
And good morning to Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Uncle Yori, I want to thank Mr. Johnson Chukwu for breaking down the monetary dynamics in our exchange rate system. I think on the whole, Uncle Yori, there is a steady progress, just like Mr. Chukwu explained. You have a trade surplus of 5 trillion, and then 3 months later, it becomes a trade surplus of 7 trillion. That's a good progress. Maybe by the time we run it for 6 quarters, we might be talking about 100% a trade surplus, which is good. But I have a question for Mr. Chukwu.
Sure.
what is the reason for the steady 1,500 naira for the exchange rate of the naira? The reason I'm asking is that I have met some economists who are arguing that the actual rate of the naira to a dollar is around 1,000 naira, and that some foreign exchange managers are insisting that they must not allow it to go below 1,500. Is this true? If it is true, why?
Okay. Okay. So there you go, Mr. Chukwu.
Yeah, okay. In the first place, the reason why Naira is trading at 1,500 or in that region is because of we are beginning to see a trade surplus. Like I said, in the first 6 months of this year, we saw a trade surplus of about 12 trillion naira, which added to your reserve. 2, we've seen consistent foreign portfolio investment flow into the economy because yield on Nigerian treasury bills, for instance, the OMO yield about 26%. Until recently, a treasury bills yield was over 20%, but they had dropped about 16, 17%, which is still higher than what the foreign portfolio investors will get in their country, which is in the region of 5%. So they borrow 5% in their home country and then come to this economy and then invest in our treasury bills at 17, 18%. So they are making 13% return. Their fear used to be that Naira will depreciate. Now Naira is appreciating. So by Naira appreciating, they are actually in a better position. So when they convert back after selling, they even get more dollar. So those are the 2 factors that are driving the stability of the exchange rate. In terms of this statement that, or the claim that the actual effective exchange rate should be in the region of 1,000 Naira to a dollar, I think that's a lot speculative. If you do a purchasing power parity, that's if you say, what do they sell a bottle of Coke in America, what do they sell it in Nigeria, and you convert to dollar and do all those things, I don't think you have, I can't do it while we are talking here, but I don't think it will give us the region of 1,000 Naira. The key thing is that when people say we should not, the central bank should not encourage a very swift appreciation of the currency, because those factors I mentioned, which have made Naira to appreciate, are not yet stable. They are not yet firm. The one that you can actually say you can celebrate is the increase in exports, which has led to a positive balance of trade. But in terms of foreign portfolio investment, they can leave at any time, and they leave, it will put pressure on you. So if Naira appreciates suddenly, what that means is that the incentive that will drive, so should any of those factors change, you are going to see an immediate depreciation of the currency. So it's better you have stability than you just have strength of the local currency. Okay. And again, we're also beginning to see improvement in non-oil export. Non-oil export is stimulated by a weaker currency. So at 1,500, those who are exporting sesame seed and all those things, they have an incentive to work hard. You and I have the incentive to go and make sure we plant palm trees, and in 3 years we begin to export. For instance, a barrel of palm oil is more expensive than a barrel of crude. So a strong currency is not one of the factors that will be a priority to the economic operators today, given how fragile our economy still is.
Okay. I don't know, you've been referring to a current exchange rate of somewhere around 1,500, but as of this morning, I think it's in the region of 1,488, according, is that significant?
Yes, the 1,488 will be in the region there at the official windows. Okay. The parallel market window is still around that 1,505 naira or so. Okay. But it's possible it can continue to follow the official window and drop to below 1,500. Okay. So it's still possible that naira will appreciate materially, but if you allow the currency to appreciate, you could actually see an attack by currency speculators who are sure you can't defend the naira. So they will buy the naira at, assuming it drops to 1,000 naira, and you don't have the net reserve, what you call net reserve. If you exclude what you have borrowed and what for, it will go out quickly. If you don't have the net reserve to keep it at 1,000, and they will rate, they will attack the currency, buy up dollar, and then when it begins to depreciate, they will borrow naira, buy dollar. When it begins to depreciate, they will sell the dollar and pay the naira and make money.
Wow.
So
wow.
you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you open to currency speculators.
Okay. Mr. Oluwadaraniwa in Abuja, good morning to you.
Olu Adaraniwa.
Olu Adaraniwa. Good morning to you, sir. Newa.
Yes.
The Jebo accent.
Yes. I'm calling from Abuja. And while one should commend the exposition of Mr. Chukwu on the economy as well as the gain that we are beginning to witness, particularly the moderation of exchange rates and the expected deceleration perhaps in the interest rate if the monetary policy positive and that is approved. That is at the macro level. At the micro level, most Nigerians are still not seeing this on the table. So despite that, we are still seeing light at the end of the tunnel, going by his explanation. However, I have a suggestion, and that is because most Nigerians are impatient. So it's incumbent on the administration to put people like Mr. Chukwu together, liaise with the National Orientation Agency. Let them begin to translate all of this is views and that of other economists into the various languages like Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and some other local languages, so that people will begin to see that there is need for them to do the needful. Let everybody play, all the stakeholders, let them play their own part, at least to witness what we are beginning to see, that at the end of the tunnel, there is a light. Not that most people are not aware. Even some elites, they don't even know the granular details of what Mr. Chukwu is saying. So I think this is just my suggestion.
Thank you.
Go down to the basics. Let people know, the grassroots people, they need to be disinformed. I think this is just my honest
Thank you very much, Mr. Olu Adaranewa. Thank you very much for calling in and also for sorting out our pronunciation. It wasn't as long as I thought. It's actually Olu first name and then Adaranewa. Mr. Chukwu, the point that he made, it resonates with me because, especially when he said that even those that are not ignoramuses do not really understand until you sort of explained it, the intricacies and the interconnectedness of all these matters. And it sort of explains why Nigerians might be impatient. It was, I think somebody just suggested that, I wonder if in fact, I think it was the very Mr. Daranewa, that if we could just get the core of what you've explained, translate this, and then circulate it, especially in the rural areas, because after all said and done, I think that's where we have the most people. If we have most people behind it, understanding it, perhaps the whole clamor business about Nigerians, we are impatient and this is a work in progress, it will sort of be explained, and maybe the impatience will sort of settle down a bit because people will know that we're on the right course. Is that a doable proposition?
Uncle Yori, the government has a retinue of advisors. The government has a retinue of public relations persons. There's a Ministry of Communication, and there's a Ministry of Information. There's a ministry. You have the Ministry of Finance. There is somebody whose job is the head of public relationship. You have Central Bank. You have several finance arms of government. So I think it's not for lack of the right or the number of people with knowledge. It's I wouldn't know how to explain it, but I think the government is in a position and they have the resources, both human capital and economic resources, to bring to the doorsteps of its citizens its economic policies, and the implication of those policies. I think it's not for lack of those resources.
Okay. I mean, after all, along with, what you are saying, I think it happened when there was this whole taxation review, reform of taxation. A lot of people came to understand a lot of stuff. That's because there was a concerted conversation about it, all over the place. Chidi in Kafanchan, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Pleased to have me. Good morning, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. I've been listening with keen interest the analysis being made by Mr. Chukwu over the economic situation of this country.
Okay.
And maybe the world at large. I want to agree with so many things he has thus far said. But the only complication here is for it to get down to the grassroots.
Okay.
There are the people in the grassroots, particularly the market women, some businessmen like my humble self here, who might open their shops from morning till night. They find it very difficult to make ends meet. Things should be put in proper perspective in order to help our manufacturing sector to come up. By so doing, it will help the employment level to improve. It will help the market men and women to improve in their businesses. And by so doing, the economy will become bolder. And when the economy becomes bolder, a lot of challenges that people are going through will be properly mitigated. While I appreciate what the government is doing thus far, I will also encourage them to do more so that at the end, we shall all be recipients of the good governance. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in. After all, it is, submissions like yours that really make the best of our experts. And that one thing you expressed, maybe I'm sure there might be thousands of people who are also thinking along that line. What would be your comment, to what Mr. Chidi has said, calling in from Kafanchan there?
Well, it's similar to what I said earlier. The government has the mouthpiece to educate the populace on its economic policies. But the part of what he said, which I think I need to emphasize, that, like I said earlier, that economic policies should be driven by internal factors, and that means that the government should be inward focused in its economic policy and plans. Clearly, there is a need for us to take measures to support the growth of the small and medium-scale enterprises. If you look at the macroeconomic environment and you look at the interest rate environment, it may not be feasible for the conventional banks to lend to the likes of Chidi or to several other businesses who needs to borrow money at lower interest rate and then produce goods and services. And that's why you have intervention agencies. You have the Development Bank of Nigeria, which is supposed to provide small-scale loans to small and medium-scale businesses. So we need to evolve a mechanism that will make it easy for people who need such loans to access the DBN, the Development Bank of Nigeria's loans. You have the Bank of Industry that is supposed to provide loans to people who are into manufacturing. Government needs to capitalize these entities to ensure they can provide funding. You have the Bank of Agriculture that's supposed to lend to small and medium-scale farmers. So, and this money should be at sub-market rate, that will be lent to them at interest rates that are below the rate that you can buy market and what the commercial banks are lending, so that these people can borrow. Then there are other factors that you need to support this small and medium scale enterprise, like off-taker arrangements for farmers, where you have a structure where now there's tomato is being produced and it's being wasted. Several other products are being produced and wasted because they don't have storage capacity. Government can actually evolve an off-taker arrangement where the excess of food items that are produced in the harvest season are bought over by the government and stored in silos and refrigerated environment where they can arrange to either ship them, export them to other countries, or convert them into more semi-produced or fully produced manufactured goods, like tomato, who said you can put a structure in place that will enable us to export the tomato to those who are converting them into tin tomato. So government has a lot of work to do in an economy in this state to support the growth of those small and medium-scale enterprises, and that will eventually catalyze into bigger entities like what has happened in China.
Mm. Well, you know, I think at this stage, I'm going to stop. When I say stop, of course, the conversations will continue, but we're going to have to take what you've just explained, digest it, and come to a better understanding of what's going on, for which I want to thank you very much. Yeah, declining inflation. Yes, stabilization of the Naira, and your thoughts on the whole concept of raising hope for, you know, rate cuts. You've explained all of this so meticulously, so I think we have a better understanding, even as it is just, as it were, you know, a very small analysis in the past 45 minutes or so. So thank you very much, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, CEO, Cowrie Investments Limited, for coming on the program, as always. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So we're going to have to leave it here now. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition of the program. I am Iyori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.